So this was probably early 90s. I was spiritually on fire in a sense. I was absolutely overwhelmed with this passion of interviewing near-death experiencers, and I was, just a rough, crude estimate, interviewing 2 to 3 of them a week, in-depth interviews lasting 2 to 5 hours, and this was changing me, changing my whole understanding of what reality was and what I was, and I couldn't get enough of it. In the course of this, and so people would call the Seattle IANDS phone line, which was in my apartment, and so I was contacting people all over. And out of this came some very important friendships, and out of this came a contact with a woman named Emma Jones, who told me about her experience of drowning as a teenager, rising up above the river, seeing friends and relatives diving in. They'd take her out, resuscitate her. There's a lot more to her experience, but that's how the contact was made. She still does hypnotherapy work and went on to do drug rehab counseling, anger management programs, and diving even deeper into how hypnosis could be used for all forms of healing. She and I would do regression work on each other, and not a lot, but I was able to regress her and help her get in touch with her higher self, who she named Huola. and she would give me a list of questions, and I would ask Huola, and then Huola would talk through her, whatever. So we had this connection as people who knew about the power of hypnosis. She called me one day and said, how would you like to try this experience? I have found that regressing people to an in-between life state where they're able to, an in-between life state enables them to contact the fullness of what they are, fullness of what a human being really is. Since then, I've just done some real simple thinking about this. Of course, we're born with a particular sun sign, if you know astrology. We could be born in Alabama, and you have a certain cultural context that shapes you. You have certain parents, they shape you. Who and what each of us is not the wholeness necessarily of what we are. With her clients, she discovered that people who had taken on diminishing thought forms about themselves deeply, you can't, you're a failure, you won't, or other burdens like that, that diminished their wholeness, she could free by guiding them into this in-between life state where they met the fullness of what they were. And then they would come back and they would be really healed. They would now, all they'd taken on was false notions, which they had unfortunately kind of abetted by adding energy to and repeating to themselves, I can't, I'm consciously doing this. Healed and liberated. And yes, I was interested. Not that I had any problems. Don't laugh too loud, okay? So I went down to her office down not far from here, and was in this very comfortable leather chair. And it really helps when you have trust for the hypnotherapist, because one needs to let go of all doubts. One has to give oneself totally over, and one can do this in trust to the guidance. Sorry, just being at the. One has to give oneself over to the guidance. I was moving towards this light that she was guiding me towards, and I was totally raw open when all of a sudden I saw coming straight down towards me flames. It was like molten lava coming straight down. The best way I could describe that would be like what you would see in older movies where medieval war would take place and they'd catapult flaming oil or something. This is what was coming down at me, and it's totally real. It's coming right down to the ceiling, when all of a sudden I see this white-blue phosphorescent, and it crosses the path of my, I'd have to call it spiritual vision, and there's a being there who I could not see, but I could feel the force field of. And this being is yelling at. And it's yelling. How the spiritual will sometimes work, I understand, is they'll use voices, vocabulary, or techniques that can get right into you. And in this case, the voice that was used by this being is a replication of drill instructors I encountered on Parris Island in the Marine Corps. And they would yell at you, and it would go right into your nervous system, and they knew how to do it to you. So the being was yelling at me, and I'll try. So this is like 1/5 of the volume and the intensity it was yelling at about the lava. This represents all the anger you have brought into this lifetime. This is the major problem you have to deal with. Boom. All of a sudden, I was now experiencing the after effects of my death over what I think was probably a Greek town, city. I say Greek because the rooftops were white. The sun was probably 2 o'clock in terms of the slant green, blue water around, maybe Mediterranean, maybe Aegean Sea, I don't know. But I knew I was experiencing. I was now experiencing this. I was rising up from having been killed, and I was looking down maybe 1,000 feet below me, and I was rising up, and I was like molten lava myself. I was so furious about what it. And the trick of all of this was, this is such a clever way to set this up, was bam! I was now back in Emma's office in the chair, and I could feel that anger, that lava in me. I could feel it. It was still there. Totally consistent with what I had come across, something the Dalai Lama had mentioned, which was that when your life ends physically, one should never think that any acts of kindness or compassion that you've done will kind of end, that this kindness, compassion part of you will end. Rather, the kindness we bring into life and the compassion we bring into life develops kind of a compassion muscle, and we get stronger. So he says, that's all waiting for you. Any good thing you do and you develop is waiting for you. Nothing is lost at death, including all your addictions. They're waiting, including my anger. Including my anger. So this was real. This was so real. This was so on. I knew it was absolutely true. It was true. I was an angry, angry person, and the focus of my anger was corporate America. I believed so much it was the evil dragon on the planet. And had I gotten involved with the wrong group of people, I might have been out there doing some nasty stuff, dynamiting or doing whatever. But now this being had called me on it, and I knew it was true. Suddenly, I had to start figuring out, and I knew it was true. So I had to start figuring, how could I care for or love things that I had hated before. So I had to be ultra aware of my reactions, and then I remember reading something for Sardello, Robert Sardello says, if you look at a corporate structure and you have nasty thoughts for it, towards those people, what they're doing, are you aware you're cooking the people inside what you're thinking? So these kinds of things are causing my. So I began to make heavy-duty changes. I had to discover how could I find things about corporate America I liked. I began to discover there were a few, actually. There were actually quite a few. So it was a major, major, major shifting point in my life. It made me very aware of my feeling state, and I'm extremely grateful for the intervention. It's interesting that it took this period of time. My sense is that it was several hundred years, but now is a point in time in history where this could happen. The confluence of me with Emma could take place, and I could experience this confrontation encounter with this part of my being.